are one of the things, you know, where a person gets hysterics on the air, and you'll just have to...
This is Dick Clark, and you're listening to radio personalities breaking up over their own bloopers. Bloopers you'll hear throughout this album. By the way, let me suggest that you listen to both sides all the way through once, and then go back and pick out your personal favorites. Bloopers you'll want to listen to and laugh along with over and over again. So settle back, turn up your stereo, and let's have some fun. Let's begin our fun trip with a listen to the news. Now, because the essence of the news is immediate and fast-breaking, it's almost always done live, so you don't have a chance to correct your mistakes. Let's try some quickies here. For example, network newsman Dick Culp doing a story about perishable food goods.
While striking dock workers vote on a union leader's recommendation to move perishable food goods.
What did he say?
Perishable food goods.
That's what I thought he said. You try saying food goods 50 times and see how well you do. Or try this one from Scott Shurian on a story about a dock workers' strike.
John Sullivan, who hopes there will be a settlement to the dock workers' strike soon.
Now, there's no way to call those tongue twisters back. Not when you're live on the air. Now, here's one. It's a story about an accident involving two trains from newscaster Sam DePino.
About 50 persons slightly hurt this afternoon when two rapid transit trains in Chicago collided. Police say one of the trains was standing still, the other was stationary.
I don't think Sam ever figured out that one of those trains had to be moving, but here's a newsman who knew he'd made a big mistake the instant the words left his mouth.
Small minority groups had terrorized an official of Boston's Statler Hitler.
Now, tongue-twisting one word is one thing. It usually, sort of goes by very quickly on the air. But pity the poor newscaster who's paid to deliver the news with a voice of authority, and then gets into a story that produces the giggles. Now, the late Merrill Muller was one of the best newscasters in the whole business, but one day, live on the air, he read this story.
Dr. Harry Bunk Jr. of Menlo Park reports the first successful toe transplant in the United States. Dr. Bunk says if all goes well, Carl Tagler, 30, will soon be using his right toe as a thumb of his right hand.
Now, he got through the story all right, but his director thought it sounded funny, so he quickly took off his shoe and his sock, he took his jacket off, and he stuck his bare foot through the sleeve, and he waved it through the studio window. Now, listen as Muller looks up, sees this, and tries to finish the newscast.
Establishing 2 national birth control centers to make family planning a reality within 5 years. I'm Merrill Muller in Los Angeles. That's the hour on the hour. Hey, American Information Radio.
Lowell Thomas, the legendary news commentator, had a very tough time keeping a straight face on some of his stories, and this has got to be one of his classics.
About a new book called Diet or Die. Author, Mrs. Celesta Geyer, perhaps better known to millions of carnival fans as the one-time Dolly Dimples. Remember, the world's most beautiful fat lady? That was the billing Mrs. Geyer used when she weighed 555 pounds. Count them, 555 pounds. Now a svelte 122. She tells in her book how she did it, following the advice of a doctor who told her after a near-fatal heart attack to...
All right, now listen, here he goes, and remember, he's on the air, live.
Willpower, said Mrs. Geyer, adding that her own willpower was strengthened by the memory... Well, anyhow, she said that her... fat friends from carnival life died at an early age, later buried from the back of a truck. Those her own words. Why truck? Because in Mrs. Geyer, they were too big for a hearse.
It's live on the air. You can't stop, obviously.
Oh.
The blooper side of Lowell Thomas and the news. Now here's one from the two-man news team of Bob Arthur and Ken Minyard in Los Angeles.
Cleveland, a newsboy's testimony that he had seen an anatomy professor and his wife perform a sexual act has resulted in the professor being charged with involuntary manslaughter. Seems the last time they tried it, well, this gets very complicated. The last time they tried it, the rope slipped from the wife's ankle and she fell to her death. Go ahead, Ken.
Washington, President Ford is expected to extend his amnesty program for draft evaders and deserters for at least a month. I'm sorry, that is really not a funny story, but it sounds a little awkward.
It did sound a little awkward.
Bob Arthur, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
I'm not sure. Have a good day anyway.
I think the funny thing was trying to see Bob get out of the story.
Well, I'm sorry I ever got into it.
Jim Simon joins me in 5 minutes.
Maybe.
And so our ongoing series continues. Here it is. One of the most celebrated artists, Bob, of the 1920s.
Yes.
Was a Chinese painter named Wang Ernan.
Wang Ernan.
The famous Wang Ernan. In answer to the question, how's your Wang Ernan?
You sure you want to go on with this?
No.
All right, let's turn our blooper attention now to one of the basic ingredients in radio, commercials. Now, when a sponsor buys time on radio, they want their product presented in the best possible light. When you're on the air live, well, anything can happen. Now, Don McNeil, the host of the famous Breakfast Club, would try and work his commercials into the entertainment portion of his show. And one day, talking to a child singer, who, by the way, would go on to become a superstar years later, this sort of thing backfired on him and his sponsor, Grape Nuts.
That little Brenda wishes she had some grape nuts right now, don't you?
I don't like grape nuts.
Did you recognize that little girl's voice? She went on to become a really big singing star, Brenda Lee. Now listen as Don McNeil tries to get out of it.
Well, that's all right. Now, that's all right, Brenda. You didn't say anything wrong, because if you don't like them, I'm glad you told me about it. The thing is, if everybody liked them, they wouldn't have me advertising them, because then everybody'd eat them, and there'd be no use trying to get people to try them. And naturally, everybody can't like them.
You're getting out of it, but I just let it go.
Whoops. A lot of times commercials are pre-recorded before they get on the air, so you don't get to hear the bloopers. We're going to take you behind the scenes for some commercial recording sessions. And first up, from Newcastle, Pennsylvania, Ken LeBove and Phyllis Calabrese with a meat company commercial.
Boy, those steaks smell good, Tom.
Yeah, they're just about ready. Here, try some.
Delicious. You're some chef.
You were supposed to sound like you were talking something.
You wouldn't let me read the rest of the script.
That's okay. You don't have to do that.
2, 1.
Boy, those snakes.
Snakes? 3, 2, 1.
Boy, do those steaks smell good.
Spit in my eye, Calabrese, why don't you? God, you slub.
Come on.
Thanks, but don't.
Well, they've flubbed another 12 takes. They still can't get it, but they are determined.
Distributes the same fucking grease comes of fucking meat!
Whoops. Now here are a couple of major radio personalities with a case of the twisted tongue. First, Rick Dees, one of the most successful disc jockeys in the country. Here's Rick trying to record some commercials.
100 different music groups, shows, displays, and attractions to hang your 10-gallon hat on. You get it all, plus 135 wild ride shows and adventures. Shit.
The newest style, knickers, only $9.95. Now it's Smarty Pants and
Bless you.
Hey, that's great.
a little more,
Rick, for fuck's sake, this ain't an album.
I know, just
From Rick Dees, we move on to another great personality as he wrestles through a recording session for Memorex tapes. Here's the one and only Wolfman Jack.
Of course, Memorex High Bias 2 is guaranteed to sound live forever, or will replace it free. Jesus, I did it right that time.
Some days, even when you're right, you're wrong. Now, at least the Wolfman had the luxury of pre-recording and getting his flubs out of the way before anybody heard him on the radio. National radio personality and my very good friend Gary Owens had no such luck one Christmas. He's on the air, trying to do a commercial for a very serious and helpful product.
Christmas means many things to many people. To some, Christmas means glittering lights, gaily wrapped gifts. That's right, sounds of laughter and good cheer. To the folks at Preparation H, it means a time to pause for a few moments to to give thanks to their friends who've been so kind and generous. So from Preparation H to you and yours, very Merry Christmas.
It's Gary Owens trying to keep the spirit of Christmas and his cool without much luck. Now here's a fun collection of tongue twisters, a quick review of bloopers that made our radio listening just a little more interesting over the years.
The National Safety Council has taken a hand in the battle over the midi-skirt. The council's Sharon Bush says the midi restricts the leg and knee movements and could cause a bad fall.
Watch, you're listening to 95.6. We'll give you a free summer survival kit, a kit.
63 in Long Beach, 64 in Burbank and in San Diego, and light drizzle falling.
And now here are tonight's high school football scores. Let's make that tonight's high school football scores.
Sides got 'em in famous names: shirts, suits, ties, shoots, and Sue's shoes, and sportswear.
Fly Northwest Area Door Lines.
The antiseptic that brings you both. Quickly lubricates and softens fever blisters.
This message was brought to you by the Upper Midwest Council for Better Vision.
The Merchant Matter trial continued today.
Peace talks. There's a glimmer of hope for peace in the Mideast.
Fate of Claude Fly, kidnapped almost 3 months ago.
It's rather serious as it broke diplomatic relations with Jordan.
But a company spokesman denies that the actions have any connections, that is.
Now the campers want to park hubcap to hubcap and fence their tents so close.
Charlie Manson is no longer the bearded hippie leader of a commune family. This morning he's a Clanshaven hippie leader of a commune family. Rather clean-shaven, I should say.
Just a few little tongue twisters to help make your day. When it comes to blooper commercials on the air, I don't know of many that could top this one. Now, it happened on a New York talk show hosted by a man I admired a great deal, Long John Neville. Now, John always had interesting, very stimulating guests on the show, and in this case, he's sitting with a noted plastic surgeon and a public relations executive. A very, very, very outstanding panel of people, and at one point in this very serious discussion, he has to pause and read a commercial. Now, he hasn't seen the copy until he actually reads it on the air, and only then does he discover it's a commercial for an X-rated adult movie entitled It Happened in Hollywood, and the rest is blooper giggling history.
Yes, it happened in Hollywood, and perhaps it's the most ambitious adult film ever made. Now, it claims a cast of over 50 souls who cavort and carry on in the name of sexual liberation and good, clean fun. It happened in Hollywood, and some of the lines in here are, it happened in Hollywood. It contains a circus act by the name of the Flying Fools, who make love on a trapeze. This is not to be laughed at. This is serious.
Am I in the right station?
And it happened in Hollywood as the true-to-life tale of a recently fired...
Can't be serious.
Geez, I hope you're serious, John.
No, even the guests are joining in. They're trying
Continue on
desperately
if
to
I
get
go
on the
straight
track.
on this, because actually, it is a motion picture, and everything that I'm telling you about it is based on fact. It happened in Hollywood as the true life tale of a recently fired telephone company operator who decides that she always wanted to be a star in sex films. Now, from this fortunate awareness, she gambles her way through agents, photographers, casting directors, film directors, and producers, until finally reaching her admitted goal, the Academy Awards. It Happened in Hollywood was produced by Jim Buckley, written and directed by Peter Locke, and stars Felicity Split.
Oh, no. The cast seems unreal, too. My God.
He was all right for a while, but he's gone.
I can't believe half of that.
And it also includes Al Goldstein. As the high priest of the Philippines. Philip Sternberger, Samson, Suzette Harris, as Catherine the Great.
Oh, boy.
Ada Banana as the lesbian leader.
Banana?
Now remember, this is supposed to be a 1-minute commercial. It's going on forever.
An entire cast of morons and misfits devoted to your entertainment and titillation. Now playing at the Orleans Theater, 47th Street west of Broadway. Now I want to give you some of the reviews. It Happened in Hollywood may prove to be the sexual revolution sound of music. Playboy magazine made that statement. It Happened in Hollywood is as explicit as it can ever get. Nothing is hidden or covered. When Felicity Split gets down to business, you're right there, and I can't make it any plainer than that. It includes everything, if you know what I mean. Bob Salmaggi of the New York Column. It Happened in Hollywood makes Deep Throat seem like a religious movie.
Oh. Shows they never know. You know, some of the bravest souls in radio are the hosts of the call-in talk shows. They never know from call to call what they're going to hear. Now, here's a quickie from Al Klein on the air at KWSS in San Jose, California, wishing he had never asked the question.
Are you interested in getting in radio?
Are you kidding? In
end up like you guys?
Just your everyday friendly listener. Now, here's one of my favorites. It happened on KABC radio in Los Angeles. Now, Jack Wells was hosting his very popular call-in show when a pregnant woman called in to ask if anybody knew how she could get rid of stomach gas without using medication of any kind. So Jack asked his listeners to call in if they had a suggestion. By the way, you're going to be hearing a little echo here due to the tape delay, but this was the result.
Jack Wells, hello.
Jack, I want to tell that lady how to get the gas off of her stomach without using any kind of medicine.
How do you do that, dear?
Well, you know, when women go to the hospital to have babies, the doctors have them do an exercise that's called a knee chest position.
Uh-huh.
You get on your knees, and then you put your chest down on the floor.
Yeah?
Now, Jack begins to get sort of a mental picture of what this lady's talking about, and he cut her off on the air just before she went on to use the four-letter word for passing wind. But it was too late for him to keep his composure. Listen to him break here.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you.
Now listen to this laugh. The man's got a great laugh.
That's too much, huh? I'm sorry. We had to cut that conversation off. Oh, lady, wherever you are, bless your heart. You meant so well. We just couldn't go on with that Oh, boy. And the funny part of this, I couldn't find the button. I didn't think I was going to get it. KABC Open Live.
I love that man's laugh. Jack Wells giving an entirely new meaning to the phrase gas wars. Now, here's a phone conversation between radio personality Russ Van Arsdale and a gentleman who's trying desperately to explain the pronunciation of his name.
Do you pronounce that Cisneros?
Cisneros.
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 No.
Now, it's one thing not to be able to pronounce the name of a non-famous listener on the air, but something else again when you're trying to interview a politician whose name you should know. Phone show host Marv Gray found that out in this particular conversation.
All right, now we're honored to have on the line the former Prime Minister of Canada, John Diefenbacher. Good afternoon, sir.
That's not the right pronunciation either.
All right, I'm sorry.
Baker it is.
Diefenbaker, I'm sorry, sir. Mr. Diefenbaker.
Now, for sheer candor and brevity, this next piece got to take the award. If our previous caller was upset because his name was mispronounced, try this one on for size.
Is there someone we can speak to for information on that two-alarm fire?
Yes, ma'am. I can give you all the info you want.
All right, sir. Suppose you give me your name first so I can identify you.
My number is 55.
No, your name, sir, can I...
I don't have no name.
You know, when it comes to call-in shows on the radio, my old friend Bill Balance is a one-of-a-kind. Due to the delicate nature of his subject matter, sometimes he gets a little more than he's bargained for, and he has to remove words before they get on the air. What you're going to hear now is what Bill hears in his ear, and it is duly censored on the air, of course, not meant for sensitive ears.
Frankly, my dear, was there much romance between the nurses and the doctors?
Quite a bit. Nurses have always been a very good quote-unquote lay.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, he said, let's get in the back seat and give me some head.
Oh. Name just one tiny rotten character flaw you may have.
I'm a bitch when I'm pregnant.
Oh, what a song title.
No, I wouldn't say we're shaped that way. The boys back home said like a brick shithouse.
I can hear the estrogen churning in your sweet pussy, your sweet pussy, your pussy willow vocal cords.
All right, you worthy.
Have to take that out.
That is ridiculous.
Uh-oh. Say rubber baby buggy bumpers, Estelle.
Go to hell.
That's a sample of the uncensored Bill Balance.
I think that was one of my former mothers-in-law. I don't know.
Now, here's a blooper that really is a one-of-a-kind. It's not a flub or a belly laugh because of a mistake. In this case, it's a natural disaster that catches a radio personality totally off guard. Now, it happened back in 1971, just as Los Angeles was hit by a major earthquake. Dick Whittington, a very popular disc jockey, was hosting his early morning show on KGIL, and he's on the air as the earthquake hits. Now, listen.
They have a dancing group. By that I mean a group that plays for your dancing that starts at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which I think is rather nice.
Right, now the real quake hits, and it hits hard.
In the morning, and yet, what in the hell was that? Oh boy. Hot damn. I'm under the sill. I'll be back. No, don't come in here. I'm under this one. I'm in the doorway. You think it's over yet? I'm right under the doorway. That's where I am, right here, and I'll be damned if I'm moving.
Those guys in the towers.
I'll do the rest.
You left one of your ears on the floor.
I left one of my ears on the floor. My ward
out with your earphones.
My ward
Stop it and go back to work. Go on.
No,
get in there.
I'm back to work.
I'll take over.
I gotta get out of here. I really gotta get out of here. If anybody wants to offer me a job this morning, I work $10 below scale. Head for the San Fernando Valley and these damn tumblers. Where was I? Honest to God, my heart is in my mouth.
I don't know.
And now, sports fans, it's time to turn our attention to the playing field and those sportscasters who give us all the scores, and in this case, a lot more. We open our blooper sportscast with the award-winning network sportscaster Keith Jackson, who had to learn the hard way the difference between prawns, as in shrimp, and pawns, as in, chess pieces.
From the sports world, this is Keith Jackson in Los Angeles on the American Entertainment Network. My name for a buck, the money game for athletes, where the brawny and the skilled become mere prawns for a...
Now, Keith's mistake was an innocent slip of the tongue, but sportscaster Bill Miller, while on KGGF in Coffeyville, Kansas, found himself with a not-so-innocent problem. Too many people in the studio named Dick.
We're capable of playing against a fine Mesa football team.
Okay, Dick, of course we'll have a lot of comments about that game between now and then. I wonder if we could squeeze another Dick in front of the microphone now.
Whoops! And now here's Charles Homer Bill trying to pay tribute on the air to the Fighting Irish of Notre Dame.
As we bring you the entire Notre Dame football schedule. Whether the Irish are the immovable, he said for the time, he's going to say it once more. Immovable body, no, not this time. Immovable body, and their formidable schedule of opponents, the aristocrats. Some days you can't say them at all.
Well, some days none of us can say it at all. Now, in some cases, you're better off not saying it at all. For instance, Ron Feynman found that out during the play-by-play for a local baseball team in Bakersfield, California. Now, Ron didn't exactly have a real clear view of the playing field from the press box, so he called him as he thought he saw.
With them to the windup, here comes the pitch to Gomez. Bat stroked into right field. Right fielder Coughlin moving over to the foul line, running, dives, and... what a catch that is by Kevin Coughlin.
Well, now he quickly realizes the fielder dropped the ball.
Had he made it.
Now, Jerry Coleman ended a very successful baseball career with the New York Yankees to begin a sportscasting career, and a very successful one at that. The bloopers you're about to hear happened on his last day as a network sportscaster, as he was about to begin his job as the play-by-play announcer for the San Diego Padres. Now, Jerry'd been flubbing the name of Coach Gene Bartow during rehearsal, so his director said, be sure you get it right on the air. Listen.
So, as Memphis State head basketball coach Gene Bartow said, the Tigers will have to do it a third time, or it'll be the Louisville Cardinals who will carry the Missouri Valley Conference battle in the playoffs.
Oh, he suddenly realized he's blown Gene Bartow's name, and he tries to keep going.
Has the lead at 11 par on the 10th hole in the third round of play. Jerry Hurd is 3 off the pace at 8 under on the 11th. Lee Trevino, Dale Douglas, and Jim Jameson, all 7 under with Trevino on the 11th. Douglas on the 12th. That's the sports world. Jerry Coleman in Los Angeles.
Now, Jerry took a lot of kidding from his director about that incident, and he was about to go back on the air with his final broadcast a couple hours later, and his director leaned over his shoulder at the last minute and said, "Now remember, Jerry, this is your last broadcast. For goodness sake, don't blow it this time."
Or it'll be the Louisville Cardinals who will carry the Missouri Valley Conference banner in the NCAA title holders. In the Citrus Open Golf Tournament in Orlando, Florida, Chris Blocker has the lead at 11 under par on the 10th hole in the third round of play. Jerry Hurd is 3 off the pace at 8 under on 11th. Lee Trevino, Dale Douglas, and Jim Jameson are all 7 under with Trevino on the 11th. Douglas on the 12th. Well, that's it.
You know, of all the sports bloopers we listened to in putting our album together, I think this next one's got to be my favorite. It's from sportscaster Jay Elliott, who gave an entirely new meaning to the phrase, "If at first you don't succeed, try again."
In golf today, Tony Lima shot a 7 under par 64 to win the $57,000 Oklahoma City Open.
You know, the great comic George Carlin made headlines years ago by doing a routine based on words you couldn't say on the radio. Now, most of those no-no words are still no-nos, but every once in a while the tongue slips and one will sort of pop out. Let me play a few for you. Here's one from newsman Bill Jones.
Anderson Gasaway is just gassed by the whole business. Gasaway operates Andy's Hot Cock Cake House in Long Beach.
Whoops. How about this one from field reporter Betty Roberts in Sydney, Iowa, filing her report on the Coors Shootout.
Although the name has remained the same, the program was revised for 1982 to provide a greater amount of bonus money and financial support at each of the rodeos on the Coors Shootout circuit.
Los Angeles disc jockey Jim Carson was working at a station in San Francisco when he made blooper history with this little no-no.
Well, it's my turn to say Sears regular 23.99 fast start batteries.
Now, sometimes it's not a word but a slang phrase that gets some people in hot water on the air. For instance, Terry Davis found herself red in the face one morning on WCCO in Minneapolis as she introduced fellow disc jockey Pat O'Neill.
103, the CCO FM, where in less than an hour you're going to get to hear wonderful, sweet and innocent Pat O'Neill, who's happy again. He's got a grin that is back on his face.
Indeed. And we move on now to Orlando, Florida, and WKIS. Bob James is just welcoming back Clive Thomas from vacation, and they have this sort of off-the-cuff conversation, but it's on the air.
Where did you go? I was going to say, Saul, you must have went toward the ocean.
Beautiful banks of the river of no return, Halifax.
Oh, yeah?
I spent the weekend on the Halifax River,
goodness,
which is Daytona for you newcomers.
Yeah, it's fun to beat your meat on the Halifax mud there.
Yes.
Beat your feet.
Whatever.
What's going on this morning, Clive?
We are looking at the lawn. Squad car in the parking lot.
Pay no attention to me. Nobody heard it. Nobody. No, it's fine.
We are.
All right. I'm calm.
Don't think you're not going to break me up.
No, sir.
Now, here's the news delivered in a very unique manner. Now, this is a common problem. We've all faced it at one time or another, but not necessarily in front of millions of listeners. And it comes to us from Johnny K. in Los Angeles.
Watergate tapes hearing today will focus on testimony from Secret Service agents who had custody of a recorder experts say was used to erase parts of a key White House conversation. An aide to Howard Hughes reportedly has told Senate investigators that President Nixon personally asked him for a campaign contribution back in 1968. In California, the Internal Revenue Service says price cuts totaling $18,000 will be made by 6 Northern California gas stations, which, just in case you're just tuning in and you think your radio is doing funny things, it's not really. It's me with the hiccups. just like that one.
You know, one of my favorite kinds of bloopers is the one that produces really big belly laughs from personalities that you just wouldn't expect that sort of thing from. For example, Alex Dreyer, the deep-voiced news commentator on both radio and television, combines his insight to world events with an absolutely booming voice of authority. That's why I love this next blooper. Now, this is Alex with a story about a snake who bites into glass jars.
This man who has been bitten 105 times, William Host of Miami, Florida. He doesn't milk those snakes, no, sir. He lets them bite voluntarily into a latex covering over the mouth of a glass flask.
Now, as we bring the blooper news portion of our album to a close, this is a gem you've got to hear. I just picked it up the other day. It was sent to us by a private collector. It is really a vintage piece. It dates back to about 1947, and I must confess, it is one of the strangest bloopers in our whole library. There are no laughs, no breakups, just a very strange ending to a very serious story. And every time we listened to it, we wondered, why did the man say what he said? You listen.
One of America's best-known political and diplomatic figures, John Wynant, died tonight by his own hand at his home in Concord, New Hampshire. Dr. Clarence Butterfield said that the 58-year-old former governor of New Hampshire and the former ambassador to Britain committed suicide by shooting himself in the head with a large 60-cent sized package of Alka-Seltzer.
Well, if you're like us, you're going to go back to that one again and again and try to figure it out. Why did he say that? And that, as the newscasters say, is the news. Well, I can hear you saying to yourself, all these bloopers and not one from this guy, Dick Clark. What's going on here? Well, try these on for size. Hi, this is Dick Clark, hoping you had yourself a damn sun bijim.
You're on a roll now, right?
Keep your hands off the buttons so they don't interrupt the flow. And yet another report from our society editor here. Seems that the upcoming marriage we reported a few weeks back between Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's and Bill Bateman of the Blasters has, well, sort of been put on the back burner for the time being. And White Christmas made it to the charts by two different artists in modern times. I'm losing my mind! Lean back and relax. Get up and dance. It's Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember on one of the... Lean back and relax or get up and dance at Dick... Lean back and relax or get up and dance. It's Dick Clark's Rock, Roll, and Remember on W1... Lean back and relax or get up and dance at Dick's... Lean back and relax! Hey, that's a good sounding thing, isn't it? A good record from a great performer, Carla Bonoff. Hey, that's a good record, isn't it? From a great performer, Carla Blah, blah, blah. Now, our 4th of July weekend showcase record on the National Music Survey comes from the dynamic multi-orgasmic? I don't think we can say that. And we open our update file here on the National Music Survey with the news that Prince Charles and
Take that, Your Highness.
Dinah, of course, eventually branched out into jazz, but she shit. She sure did. There's one you gotta save. And once again, Stevie's collaborating with synthesizer. That's it. That's all there is today, folks. It's a wrap.
Take two.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed our little excursion through the world of radio's uncensored bloopers. Now, before we go, there's just one more I want to play for you, and I think it's a fitting way to close our album. The blooper occurred on a network radio show some years ago. It was co-hosted by radio and television personality Virginia Graham and a young man by the name of Mike Wallace, long before we ever heard of 60 Minutes. Now, as Virginia tells this story, Mike was constantly doing something funny to break her up on the air, setting fire to her script, hiding the microphone, that sort of thing. Well, one day she decided to get back at at him and conspired with the rest of the crew to pretend that they were on the air live when really they were just taping. Now, she thought it would be very, very funny to read a letter from a listener, something very risque. Now, you got to remember, in this day and age, that sort of thing just wasn't done on the radio. Well, everything went according to plan. There was only one problem. Virginia couldn't keep a straight face during her own joke. She started, she looks over at Mike, sees this little bitty smile on his face, and she goes right from the top. Listen.
Today's letter is from Miss C.S. And Mrs. C.S. has a problem with her husband. He hasn't been coming home at night and giving her too long. I have got to explain to you, ladies and gentlemen, that he's an impossible person, and he's been making me laugh on the air, and I have promised that I wouldn't do it anymore. And I'll continue talking. Now, I'm very sorry. I think maybe we ought to go to music, and I'll come back and I'll do my letters later.
Now, she's taking a deep breath. She's got control of herself, straight as a die. And I was going to explain this.
These are one of the things, you know, where a person gets hysterics on the air, and you'll just have to...
Here she goes. Now, you think she's finished? No, maybe she's got it here. All right, everybody straighten up. Here we go. It's going to be all right.
Oh, I'm sick.
I hope you've enjoyed yourself as much as we have. I'd like to take a quick second here to say thank you to all of the disc jockeys, news and sportscasters, talk show hosts, all of the great radio professionals whose wonderful sense of humor allowed them to share with us some very funny moments. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, very much.
Here's Lowell Thomas, who says, so long until... Tomorrow, is it? Yeah, I guess so.